Hi, I'm Tom Lippincott with Modern Guitar Harmony, and this is the third video in my series talking about some basics of harmony. So in the first video we talked about the way intervals work, major second, minor second, major third, and so forth. In this video we're going to talk about combining intervals and playing them harmonically, or meaning together, on two different strings. I'm starting with C, first fret of the B string, and I'm combining it with the open E string. So I'm playing both of those notes together. And now, that shape, if I play it on one string, has that 4-fret span, but now of course I can see it's a little different on the two different strings. It's sort of 1 fret apart, right? Now, if I go up one note in the scale on each string, C goes to D, it doesn't go up 2 frets, goes up 1 fret to F, right? So now the shape changes a little bit. I've got 2 frets apart, so 1 fret apart, 2 fret apart. Well, as it turns out, if I play it on one string, C to E is 4 frets, D to F is only 3 frets. So what did we say in the first video that 3 frets is? That's a minor third. So the shape here is a major third interval, and this shape is a minor third interval. If I keep going up the major scale, I'm going to get combinations of major thirds and minor thirds. D to E, F to G, another minor third, E to G. Go up from E to F, half step, and then G to A, whole step. Now I'm back to a major third from F to A. They both go up a whole step. G to B becomes a major third. Minor third again, A to C. B to D is another minor third. And finally, the octave. So major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor, major. Notice that there's 3 major thirds, C to E, F to A, G to B, and then there's 4 minor thirds, D to F, E to G, A to C, and B to D. This one up here was the octave of this, so they're the same 2 notes. Now, I want to do the same thing with all the different intervals, seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and so on. And I can do that on adjacent strings by simply, if I start with an open E string and I go to D, let's say, on the B string, that's a second, right? But I'm playing them at the same time. Major second, 2 whole steps, or 2 half steps. The next 2 notes, E to F, would give me a minor second, and that's a bigger stretch. Major second, major second, major second, minor second, major second, major second. Again, the reason I'm getting those different shapes and different sounds is I'm staying within the C major scale. I'm doing I'm staying diatonic to the major scale. I'm staying within that scale, not playing any sharps or flats there. Seconds, diatonic thirds. Here's diatonic fourths. Fourths are kind of easy on the guitar because most guitar strings are tuned in fourths, with the exception being the G string to the B is a major third interval. So if I want to play a perfect fourth from the G string to the B string, I got to go up 1 fret. Notice here I had to put an extra fret in there. That's the distance between F and B. If I played it on one string, I can see that that's actually not a perfect fourth. It's an augmented fourth. There's a perfect fourth. So to stay within the C major scale, that fourth becomes an augmented fourth. And then again, here on the top 2 strings, B and E, it's a fourth. C to F, a fourth, and so forth. Then an F to B is an augmented fourth. Same thing with fifths. C to G is a fifth. Same shape all the way up until I get to B and F, diminished fifth, so it's a fret lower, fret closer together. Finally, if I want to go to sixth, I can do it on 2 adjacent strings like this, C to A, combination of major and minor sixth, but it's a little less of a stretch if I go to non-adjacent strings. For example, the G string and the high E string. G string I'll play C at the 5th fret, and high E string I'll play A at the 5th fret. That gives me my major sixth, another major sixth, a minor sixth, major, major, minor, minor, major. All the way down to the open string. Sevenths, I'll start with C to B, major seventh, almost an octave, but not quite. That's a major seventh. Next interval up, if I take both up a step, D to C will be a minor seventh, major seventh, minor seventh, minor seventh, minor seventh, major seventh. So again, that's a very basic sort of thumbnail sketch of intervals on the guitar. This becomes crucially important when you start to delve into more complex harmonies, triads, 3-note chords, 4-note chords, and so forth. Everything changes based on the intervals between all the notes. So let's talk about triads now. Okay, so I'm going again back to my old friend C major scale on the B string. Incidentally, I always start here because it's just of all the strings, it's the easiest one to start on C, the lowest place on the neck, 1st fret. If I had a C string on the guitar somewhere, I could just start on the open string, but I don't. Okay, so now, a triad is a chord meaning more than 2 notes played at the same time. A traditional triad is formed by taking the root, or in this case C, the 3rd note, E, and the 5th note, G, and putting them together and playing at the same time. Now that is a triad, but they're not played at the same time. Obviously I can't do that on one string, but that is a sort of a different form of a triad, and the name for that is an arpeggio. It just means I'm playing the notes in the triad one note at a time. Mick Goodrick said that an arpeggio is like a melted chord, and that a chord is like a frozen arpeggio. I thought that was a great analogy. But anyway, how do I play this if I want to play it on the guitar as a chord? Well, I'm going to have to put the notes on different strings, so C, E, and G. Well, probably the most logical place to do that would be go to the 3rd string to play my C, 5th fret, 2nd string where I was playing the E before, and then 1st string, go to G on the 3rd fret. And there is my C major triad, as you can see. Okay, and this is the most basic building block of harmony, the major triad. Now, what if I were to take one of these notes and change it? It would change the whole sound of the chord. In this case, I'm going to take the E and bring it down a half step to E flat. Sounds completely different, right? Most people describe major triads as sounding happy and minor as sounding sad. Right? Very overly simplistic way of looking at it, because I think major can be really sad and minor can be really happy depending on the context. But it's a good, easy way to remember it. Now, the reason that it's called a minor triad is because I took that note down a half step, and that creates a minor 3rd interval between the root and the 3rd of the chord. What if I take a minor triad and lower the 5th? Remember we said that if we take a perfect 5th and lower it, it's called a diminished 5th? Well, that process gives this triad its name, which is a diminished triad, C diminished. So major, minor, diminished, and then there's a couple of other ones to consider too. I'll go back to major. What if I take the 5th up a half step from G to G sharp? Now that becomes, we talked a little bit about this before, this is an augmented 5th interval, and that gives this triad its name, augmented. So C augmented triad. Okay, and then one more, and this becomes really important in the Mick Goodrick universe too. Go back to major. And what if I take the 3rd note and bring it up a half step to the 4th note of the scale? This is called a suspended triad. We're replacing the 3rd with the 4th, and it's got this kind of open sound to it. A lot of modern music tends to use this sound. Okay, so those are the basic types of triads. Now, we're going to talk about diatonic triads harmonizing the major scale. And if we start on C major, right, C major triad, those are all notes that are diatonic, the C major scale, white notes, C, E, G. Now what if I, on a piano, if I were to take C, E, G and I bring each one of the keys up to the next white note, I get D, F, and A. Does that give me another major triad? It doesn't. It gives me this shape, or this sound, which is actually a minor triad. So there are not only major triads that are diatonic to the key of C major, or to the major scale in general. So we say that the first chord derived from the root, or we can call it the 1 chord, is a major triad. The 2 chord is going to be a minor triad. If I go up to the 3 chord, it's also going to be a minor triad, E minor. 4 chord, back to major. 5 chord, G major. 6 chord, A minor. 7 chord, this is where diminished comes in. A B diminished triad is our 7 chord. Most of the time people represent these on paper as Roman numerals. So you'll see, you know, the 1 and then 2 and 3 and then IV for 4 and so forth. Okay, so on the guitar fingerboard, we saw how to form a major and a minor and a diminished triad. So if I take my C major scale on the D string and just go up the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and form those shapes of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major, major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, C major, I get the 7 diatonic chords of the major scale. 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, 7 diminished, 1 major. And the good news is on guitar, once again, I can transpose that by simply moving this shape to a different spot. So what if I wanted to play a D flat major scale harmonized? Just move everything up a fret. Now the names of everything completely change, but the chord types stay the same. 1 is major, 2 is minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, 7 diminished, 1 major. Of course now the letter names are totally different. D flat major, E flat minor, F minor, G flat major, A flat major, and so forth. So that part of it gets more complicated, but the good news is as a guitar player, once you know how to play this, I can move it all over the fingerboard to get all my different keys. Now, to move this onto different sets of strings, I may have to change my shapes because, again, the intervals are a little different from string to string. G to B in particular is that major third. So let's say I wanted to take C, E, G on this set of strings, and I wanted to bring it over to the next set of 3 strings, strings 4, 3, and 2. I could find C on the 4th string at the 10th fret, and I almost have this same shape, but it doesn't sound exactly the same. Again, that's because the distance between D and G strings is different than the distance between the G and the B string. But if I just compensate for that by lowering that note a fret, there's my C major triad again. So you can see that there's a little bit more of a complicated aspect to this if you want to go from different sets of strings, and eventually, if you're going to be complete about this, you want to make sure that you can play on any set of strings, any one of these triads. I'll have to go down an octave to play it here. And so forth. Okay, so that's the basics of diatonic harmony when it comes to triads. Now in the next video we'll talk about some inversions.